This is KRP, Ken's Random Podcast.
Hi, thanks for joining me today for KRP, Ken's Random Podcast. This is episode 51, and our topic is rather serious today. We're talking about how the Louisiana judicial system seems to be a little bit off-kilter. Joining me today is my longtime friend, retired attorney Henry Bernard, and let's get right into it.
When I saw this headline on, I think it's on Channel 3's website, I just had to do a double take. How many times do you see, well, that was his third DUI and he killed somebody, something like that, and you wonder, how did it get to the third DUI? Something should have been done earlier. But in this case, Rain Man booked on child abuse sex charges for the fourth time. And I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with this picture? And, I hope you can give me an answer or two. I'm not going to mention this man's name, but he's been booked on child sex charges for the fourth time since 2021. And that just seems so wrong. And maybe you can tell me how he is, let's say, getting away with things. I know that we are all innocent until proven guilty. But with this guy's record of when he was arrested, released on bond, released, there's got to be something wrong with this picture. Is it the judicial system?
Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of systems, but primarily the judicial system and the way we have it set up. It's kind of crazy, but it's left to the discretion of a few people, and that discretion, unfortunately, is exercised. And I've seen that over the course of the years that I've been practicing. It's exercised sometimes depending upon what your social status is, and reading between lines, looking at this individual. And of course, you can't always rely totally on what you see in the printed media, but that's all the information we have at this point to look at.
Sure.
And looking at it, he seemed to have been a prominent member of that community. His father established quite a number of businesses in that community, and he was continuing on. So this is a person of some influence, apparently, in that community, and how he got away with it is still questionable, because I'm like you, I was basically appalled when I saw this. I mean,
Sure.
First time was in 2021, I think, and
Right.
then a year later, he's picked up again, and then he's released on bond, and 3 months later, he commits the same type of atrocity again.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Yes.
But when you look at this, we do have a bond system. And of course, our judicial system is supposed to be that everybody's innocent until proven guilty. And I believe in that firmly. I was a defense lawyer for a long time, did some criminal defense work, but still in all, you have to use some reasonable judgment. And it's basically left up to a judge to decide whether or not he's going to let somebody out. And that's what I find kind of unusual, is how this guy is still on the street after having this type of a background, when he's presented, at least for that third time. A judge has got to look at this, and when he looks at the factors for granting bail, all of them kind of seem to scream that this small bail, apparently, that he can make, $250,000, $500,000 seems like a lot of money.
Yeah.
But Ken, I've seen minor crimes, not really what you would call crimes of violence, created by people of a lower socioeconomic background, that have a bail come up of $1.5 million or $2.5 million. And I said, now, how did they do that? So, yeah, the system is what it is, and I wish I could explain it better, but it's one of those things where you look at it and you say, it's the discretion of a man sitting in a bench, and you hate to criticize a judge, but there's a guideline that the judge uses, is the severity of the crime, the extent of the evidence against the individual, any prior offenses.
Right.
And then one of the final things is to protect the public at large,
Right.
whether or not you give this man bail.
Henry, when you talk about small amounts of bail, as a person who's never had to post bail, I find that a low bail you're discussing, and I look at his bail, he posted $250,000 twice, and then $500,000 once. And then, you say it's a low bail when compared to others. But to me, it's like 250 grand a low bail. But for this man, it's obviously not that much. And you wonder, did he have the money? People in the community that he knows with lots of money post bail, where's all that money coming from? So basically, right now, he's got $1 million that's just in limbo, correct? It's just sitting there because he still has not gone to trial. And it seems like once you post that bond the first time and you get arrested for a similar crime, shouldn't they keep you in jail?
You would think that that would be one of the things that the court would be looking at and a judge would be looking at very seriously. But when you talk about bail too, you have to understand how that bail is posted, because it basically three different ways that bail can be posted. Yeah, he can put up $250,000 cash. Post a cash bond, or
Right.
he can go to a professional bail bond individual and he can pay a percentage of what that bail is as a fee to that bondsman to put it up.
Right.
Or if he owns property himself, he can just pledge his property.
Mhm.
And he posts what's called a property bond, or you can get friends or relatives to post a property bond. And I would suspect in this case that that probably is what happened. That I don't know that for sure, but probably a property bond was put up for him.
Mm.
And the bond itself is not really something that a lot of people become concerned about, because if you know the person, uh, the bond is only to assure his appearance in court when he is supposed to be in court. That's all.
Mhm.
So as long as you show up every time you're supposed to, at the end of whatever the proceedings are, that bond money goes away. It's not lost. It's recovered.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned that because I'm going to quote here. The most recent event was a trial set for May of 2024, which was continued, but court records show a bench warrant was issued for his arrest in July after he failed to appear for a pretrial hearing. So there's a couple of things there. He basically jumped bail. He may not have gone anywhere, but he just didn't show up. And his attorney, with a continuance, and I'm going through the story, and it's like it was postponed because of a continuance. It was a continuance. It was a continuance because his attorney was busy with another case. And again, I didn't mention the suspect perpetrator's name. I'm not going to mention his lawyer's name because he must be one of the most incredible lawyers in the world if he's booked solid that much that this guy cannot go to trial. It just blows my mind.
Well, this is part of the problem we have with that system. Of course, generally, continuances are left to the vast discretion of the trial court, the judge. He sits on the bench. There are some areas in which he must grant a continuance, and you see a lot of that going on right now in our state legislature. Recently, the state Supreme Court held the law which allowed any member of the legislature automatically get a continuance. They held that law unconstitutional as a violation of the separation of powers between the judicial and the legislative branches of government.
Mhm.
But what's happened now is the legislature has a new act before it, because a lot of them are members of the bar, to give them that same kind of a power. But this individual, I don't think he was a member of the legislature, but I do know from having been in the legal community that he's an avid criminal defense lawyer, and that's what he practices primarily.
Mhm.
But to get that many continuances, it's again up to the discretion of the judge. So who knows, without naming a judge or anything else or what's going on. But between the district attorney's office, how much did they oppose that motion for a continuance and ask the judge, not to grant it or give it versus just roll over and say, okay. But this is something that I see in our criminal justice system on a regular basis that's abhorrent to our system is that if you have the financial resources and you can get the appropriate legal counsel who has the appropriate influence, you can continue to matters over and over and over again until they kind of got smoothed over and forgotten about.
Mhm.
We see this happen with multiple DWIs on a regular basis.
Yeah,
It's unfortunate, but it happens.
yeah, yeah. And we did not mention the suspect's name. We also are not mentioning the attorney's name, and we certainly are not going to mention the judge's name because I would not want to get in a speeding ticket or something in that parish for sure. Oh man, that's insane. When I saw multiple continuances, and let's see, in 2021 he was booked indecent behavior with a juvenile and computer aided solicitation. That victim was 15 years old at the
Under
time.
15 years of age. Yeah. Isn't that incredible? I
Yeah,
mean, we think we protect our children and that should be the primary focus. And that's what I find just absolutely astounding about this particular incident.
yeah, no, that was April 2021. A few months later, in July of that same year, 2021, he was arrested again and booked on sexual battery when he posted 500,000. And this time, the alleged victim, a different child, was younger than 15. It's like, man, what can we do to protect our kids? There's only so much, and you don't know if it's a family member or with this computer aided solicitation. It's obviously somebody out in the community somewhere. How do we protect our kids, man? I don't get it.
I think probably what we do is we start as a society and a group to do things like years ago, we had a serious problem in Louisiana. I don't think it's gone away. We still have that problem, but it's not the problem that it was before, where people repeatedly could get DWIs and not even actually have any consequences as a result of it. And then a group got started, a real campaign to say, you can't let this go on and continue. And I would suspect that possibly, if we can get the public outraged enough to start a campaign to say that this kind of activity can't be tolerated, that you can't just give continuances and let this drag on for 2 and 3 and 4 years. When people commit these types of horrendous offenses, they have to face the consequences.
Yeah.
Justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah.
That's an old expression, and that's what we're seeing right here.
Yeah, and looking at this, I don't know if the victim or victims were male or female, but one way or the other, you've got some young people out there that are scarred for life. And Henry, you brought up an interesting thing about mothers against drunk driving. Only in Louisiana will you see a huge billboard saying Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and it's above a daiquiri shop at the corner of Johnston and Ambassador. I've got friends who visited from other states, and they're like, a drive-through daiquiri place? What the hell is that? And then when you see the sign above it, the irony is lost on no one. I agree. Something more needs to be done. Our young people need to be educated, especially in this time when there's so much computer aided everything, that we have got to protect these young people, saying, don't believe everything. It's like, when you tell your kid, don't get into a car with a stranger danger, it's the same with this. When you get these appeals on a computer or a laptop or something, please hang up, go away. And I just hope we can do something about this person in particular. Anyway, the attorney had a phone call from, I guess, KATC, and asked, if they could get a comment from him, and he has not responded yet. And this is a few days later. So I don't know where it is, and we'll keep an eye on it. But I'm sure the next time we read about this guy, we'll probably be just as appalled as we are this time. Henry, I thank you for your time and your incredible insight into this. Have you got more? I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say the same to you. Thank you, Ken, for bringing this up and bringing it to light and to the eye, and trying to get more people involved in being aware of situations like this that arise, because I can assure you that probably is not the only one that has ever happened. And to bring a public awareness to this and see what we can do to make sure, like you say, our children are protected.
Yeah, Henry, what's interesting is as I'm wrapping up the interview, I'm about to put down my notes, and people that will hear this who have seen it, the same thing will happen to them. They're going to put away their notes because, okay, it happened. It's not my child. By the time this happens again, we will have forgotten all of this, and we may be reading a story saying he's been arrested a fifth time. And that really is appalling. And hopefully we can do something about that. And I'd say I'd reach out to the attorney or the judge or somebody, but we know that's pointless. So anyway, thank you again for your time and sharing your incredible insights into the judicial system.
KRP is a random production of Ken Romero.